Today I'm here with Mary Crafts. I'm super excited about this. She knows because I've been admiring her from afar for such a long time. I swear every event I go to, she's there and I'm like, man, that girl's so beautiful and so accomplished. And I was just actually telling her too, the catering company that she started years and years ago, what's it
Yeah.
called?
Culinary crafts.
Culinary Crafts, which is known as the best catering company ever. I remember looking at that at my wedding. We were just talking about this
Yeah.
and thinking, man, that is the fanciest, nicest, coolest company ever. And that's just one of the companies that you've started.
Yeah.
Mary has done so many incredible things with her life, and I really look up to her.
Yeah.
But she's also learned these lessons along the way that are so valuable. Do you mind just sharing a little bit about your life and what you've done?
Well, it seems like my life has been very full and still is very full. When I look at my calendar on my phone, I think this looks worse than when I was working.
Having to come do someone's
And
podcast.
but it's because I'm filling it with things I want to do, ways I know I can give back. I'm from a very small town of 250 people in
Wow.
Iowa. And I joined the church when I was a freshman and came out here to the Y
The
to go
Church
to
of
school.
Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Yes,
Oh, okay,
yes.
cool.
And graduated without my MRS degree, my
Wow.
being married degree. And so here
You're such a rebel.
in Provo, Utah, that is a real no-no. And finally, I was working as a social worker here. I'd graduated in social work and decided that, okay, I have to get married. Otherwise, I'm going to be a total reject. If I don't get married, I'm going to move to Orem.
Whoa.
And if you know, Orem is about 10 miles
Yeah.
from Provo, so it's not like a major move.
It's a huge, crazy move.
So I did get married, and I was involved with a marriage that was very brutal. And
Because of pressure you felt?
I did feel the pressure to get married.
How old were you when you got married?
27.
I was 28 and a half, and I didn't feel
Yeah.
pressure at all.
Yeah, that's the difference between our
Different
age.
generation. Yeah,
totally
exactly.
different. I'm 70 and you're like 29. So
Yeah.
there you go.
Okay. Yeah.
But it is a different generation. And there's a special place for
Yeah.
this guy because he is bipolar. He has a rage disorder. He had a paranoia disorder. And of course, it came out later in the marriage that he was also gay. So this is
Wow.
a man that has his own unique set of problems.
Yeah.
I entered into them, which I now realize, which I didn't at the time. I was into the finger pointing, this is all your fault. And you need to fix yourself and you need to be a different person.
Yeah.
And of course, every person believes they can change the other person.
Right.
And it just doesn't happen that way. And so I stayed for an unbelievable long time, 28 years.
Wow.
But the things that I learned in that marriage and came out of that marriage really have made me the woman that I am today.
Wow.
Without those struggles, I would probably be the same afraid, worthless woman. And when I say that, it wasn't that I was worthless. My thoughts thought I was worthless. And we all have fears, but they all center back to one. And that is that we all are afraid that we truly are not enough, that we don't measure up, that we will never measure up. And for the longest time, I really resented my mother for her perfectionist and for her Puritan values that said, never compliment your daughter because really all glory should go to God.
Oh.
And, when I would say, well, the photographer said today that I actually had nice lips. Don't be saying things like that about yourself,
Oh,
And that's how I
sad.
grew up,
So sad.
as never enough. And it took me a long time to get past that. And finally the way out for me was realizing that that was how my mother was raised,
Wow.
that she wasn't enough. And when I thought back on my grandmother, I realized she wasn't either. And there were generations of healing that had to happen. And what an amazing thing to have it begin with me.
Yeah.
And that I get to launch these other generations now with women who know that they are enough.
Yeah.
So through this whole thing, I was growing my company. And I started by pulling a little red wagon around the neighborhood, selling breads and cookies door to door with my two little boys in the wagon.
Wait, this
And
is how the catering company started?
that's how the catering
Oh my
company
goodness.
started.
And if you don't live in Utah, like you have to know this catering company is like the talk of the town. It is the fanciest, nicest. Like if you want to have a fancy event, that's who you have cater.
Well, thank you.
You're
But
welcome.
people ask me a lot when you started like that, when you were losing your little condo because you couldn't pay the mortgage and your car had been repossessed. That's why I was selling a little red wagon because I didn't have a vehicle. And
Wow.
say, did you ever dream that you would be the largest catering company in the state? 28 years, best of state, international caterer of the year, businesswoman of the year. And I've got more awards than you can shake a stick at. But
Oh,
did
I
you
know. I've seen
ever
him.
dream that where you started? And I always say the same thing. Absolutely.
Wow.
Because if you don't dream it, you cannot make it happen.
Wow.
People dream things, but then they tell themselves, that's not for me.
That's someone else.
That's someone else. I'm not able to do that. And there was something inside of me that knew that I was more than what I had been taught. So through my marriage, I still grew the business and retired 5 years ago after 35 years in the company.
Wow.
And now is the very best part of my life. If I had known retirement was going to be this fun, trust me, I'd have retired earlier. Because now I really get to share and live those lessons that were part of my life for all those years that led me to where I am today, doing a podcast like you and, to have written a book and I speak around the country and really help inspire and lift women. But this is something I really want to share with your listeners.
Okay, I want to hear it.
Because of social media, you always posting pictures. You take a picture of this, take a picture. Hi, here I am with this. Here I'm doing this, blah, blah. Someone said to me, Mary, you are the most photogenic woman I've ever known. And I responded back to him, well, duh, I don't post the bad ones. You know what I mean? Of course we look photogenic because we scroll through the 100 of photos
I love your honesty.
that we have taken and we pick the one out
Yeah.
and we put a filter on it and everything else and then you post it and it's like, wow, she looks amazing at 70. But to be honest.
Well, I'm seeing the real life version, I just have to say, and you do look amazing at 70, so but
But
I see your point.
But the thing is that one of the great gifts that I and everyone else can give is to pull back the curtain and allow people to see behind the curtain that life is not perfect.
Yeah.
Nor was it meant to be.
Yeah.
And that through my struggles that I got to grow.
Yeah.
One of my struggles, of course, as I use as protectionism in my marriage was my weight.
Oh, wow.
And I put on weight every single year till I ballooned up to 284 pounds.
Wow.
And at age 50, as I got the photos back, this is when you went to Kmart to get them.
Oh, yeah.
They weren't on your phone.
JCPenney, yeah.
And I just looked at those and I just wept. I thought, this isn't who I thought I'd be at age 50.
Yeah.
And so as I looked at those photos, I didn't know how I got there. And if you don't know how you got there, you certainly don't know how to get away from there.
Yeah.
But I knew that that was what I was committed to more than anything else. Because if I didn't understand myself, I was going to leave my children flat-footed. And so I began to look inside and realize that every one of these behaviors was based on fear.
Wow.
I was afraid of losing my business. I was always afraid of failing. I was always afraid that someone wouldn't pay their bill and I wouldn't have enough money to do this or that, or afraid that someone would be upset with me. Heaven forbid, that a pleaser have someone upset with them. I mean, I felt my entire life was filled and ruled by fear.
Wow.
And I'm like, I have got to get a hold of this fear. And we were in Sydney, Australia, and we had went there um, to pick up my son from his mission, who was in Tonga. And
Wow.
I never did anything active with my children.
Yeah.
I was too big.
Oh.
And so when they would want to go, like, oh, let's go for a hike, and I'm like, sure. And the day of, I'd be like, have a cough, can't do
Yeah.
it. I'm sick. Sorry, you go ahead. I missed out on so much. That day, as we're in Sydney and we're walking the harbor, my children now turn to me and say, Mom, let's climb the harbor bridge. Look right over here. You can do it. I'm like, I can't be sick right at this moment.
You're stuck.
What is my excuse? And I said, okay, I'm going to go in the bathroom and I'll be back out. I went in the bathroom, shut the stall door, and just sat there and wept. I am so afraid. They're asking me to do something so physical, and what if I can't? And as I realized that every single cell in my body was contracted with fear, I could hardly breathe.
Wow.
And I thought, it's today or it's never.
Wow.
I came out of that bathroom stall, went out, and I go, let's go. And they harness you up, in your harnesses, because it's so high that if a pencil drops out of your pocket, you have to clean out your pockets. It goes through the roof of the cars below on the bridge.
Oh.
And so I'm just like putting one foot in front of the other, and we start up, and I am so frightened. I pee my pants.
Of course.
And I look down to the people below, sorry about that. But I just close my eyes and I keep climbing one after another, one after another. And finally, my oldest son says, Mom, we're there. You made it. We're at the top. And for the first time, I knew what it was like to push through fear.
Wow.
And I thought, I've done this once. I can do this again.
So cool.
And so I just began. And every time I would walk up against an issue that I felt the tightness, sweaty palms, the fear come up in me, I'm like, wait a minute. You went up that bridge. You've done other things now. You know what fear is. You know it. You recognize it. Yeah. I know you. You're my old friend. Fear, not today. And you move past it. You move through it. Yeah. And I never wanted to circumvent it like I had been trying to. I spent my life trying to go around the fear with behaviors that prevented me from looking at it. Who would have ever thought that this woman at age 66 would have climbed Kilimanjaro?
You did? Wow.
Who would have thought that this little shriveled mess of fears would have written her own book about what it's like to summit? It's been a journey. But what I want people to know is that the journey continues. I'm not here now thinking, well, there's the next 40 years looking good. It's stuff every day that comes up. Just this last week, I was with my boyfriend now, and we're getting married in the spring.
Oh, congratulations.
In Ireland.
Wow.
But something came up, and he did something that triggered me with old stuff. And I immediately lit into him to the point where he was crying.
Oh, wow.
So this is not a small thing. This is me, like yelling. And he just stood there and took it. And I began to think, where is his safe place? Where is anyone's safe place to make a mistake, to mess up? But right here beside me. When I make and mess up, Just like this moment when I lost my temper and blew up, I need a safe place that I'm still learning and that I can come back, regroup, and we can both look at each other and say, it's okay. I forgive you. But the biggest key, Christina, is forgiveness of self. To be able to say, I forgive myself for going back to those old behaviors. I forgive me for forgetting for a moment. I forgive me for hurting John. And then you can let it go.
And Mary, you're kinder than even what you're letting on to, because we just 30 seconds ago had a little incident happen where I normally, when I'm filming podcasts, I don't have my children here, but my toddler was not having it. She was not going to get in the car to go to the park with the sitter. It was just not going to happen. So I was like, we'll just buckle up and see what happens. And I could hear her screaming outside with the sitter, having an absolute meltdown. So we had to pause the podcast. And I'm thinking, oh, even saying a prayer like, oh, we have people here filming. I've got Mary, who's got the craziest busy schedule ever. And I had to go calm her down and then get her started somewhere else, trying to calm down. And I came back and I'm like, Mary, I'm so sorry. And I was panicking a little bit. I'm so sorry. I know you're so busy and whatever. And she's like, you did the right thing. You did the right thing.
And to thank you for choosing the right thing.
Well, you could have been like, my time is precious, but you didn't choose that. You had compassion
because I
on
didn't
me.
want to forgive myself again.
You're like, I've been there.
But I have been there. And I think that we sometimes get on our high horses and we forget that the woman that's sitting in front of me is me. And that I am you. And that's how we become one in this world.
Yeah.
That's how we heal this planet. I'm going to share with you my last thing before we close that changed my life. I meditate every day. I was in meditation, and suddenly I was in a huge room, white, and I saw a woman walking toward me. She was so beautiful, white hair. She walked right up to me, and she simply asked me one question. Mary, what is the dream of humankind? Now, in retrospect, I probably should have said, can I have a moment to think about that? But I didn't. I said, the dream of humankind is oneness. And she said, that is right. And that is what you'll spend the rest of your life doing.
Wow.
Just that quick, it was gone. And I realized that that woman was me. It was things I had known before this life, things I'll carry with me. And I didn't have to worry anymore about what I was going to do with my life after retirement. It was to help people see that there's no difference between us. Our uniqueness makes this beautiful, and that we all come together. But that oneness heals all ills in our planet.
So true. So true. And having compassion, like you just showed me.
Yeah.
You're a good example of that. Thank you so much for sharing this. You have so much insight in every facet of life, like motherhood and work and just being kind in general. So thank you so much for sharing all that. I appreciate it.
It's an honor to be on your podcast.
Thank you so
to
much,
sit
Mary.
with you in your home.
Thank you.
And to feel of your absolute beautiful essence.
Thank you. Thank you.